Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, I'm sharing one of the most unbelievable and satisfying stories you'll ever hear about power, justice, and karma. Imagine being accused of trespassing on your own property by a homeowners association, an HOA that had no idea the person they were trying to humiliate was actually the judge who could decide their fate. This story is about arrogance, abuse of power, and what happens when you push the wrong person too far. It all began when I moved into my new home, a beautiful two-story house in a quiet suburban neighborhood. I had worked hard for years to finally find a place that felt like home. It wasn't a mansion, but it was peaceful, with big oak trees and a yard I could finally enjoy after years of living in the city. The moment I stepped in, I thought this would be my escape from stress. Little did I know, it was just the beginning of a storm. The first sign of trouble came only a week after moving in. I received a letter from the HOA stating that my mailbox was non-compliant with community standards. It looked perfectly fine to me. A standard black mailbox on a wooden post, nothing flashy. Still, I figured maybe there was some misunderstanding, so I replaced it with a new one that matched their guidelines exactly. But it didn't stop there. Within a month, more letters came. Complaints about the color of my curtains, the size of my trash bins, even the placement of my flower pots. It was ridiculous. I tried to stay calm, thinking it would all settle down once they realized I was following the rules. I paid my dues on time, attended the meetings, and kept a polite attitude. But there was one woman in particular. The HOA president, named Carol, who seemed to have made it her mission to make my life miserable. Carol was one of those people who thrived on control. She walked around the neighborhood like she owned every inch of it, clipboard in hand, always looking for someone to lecture. If your grass was half an inch too tall, she'd know. If your car wasn't perfectly parked, she'd leave a note. The worst part. Most people were too afraid to stand up to her. One morning, I was doing some light yard work when Carol showed up uninvited, telling me I needed permission from the HOA to plant a new tree in my own front yard. I calmly explained that I had reviewed the community bylaws and found no such requirement. Her face turned red as she insisted that all landscaping changes must be approved. I thanked her for the information and went on with my day. That's when things took a darker turn. The next week, I received a notice accusing me of trespassing on community property, the supposed property, my own backyard. According to the letter, a portion of my backyard, technically, extended into land maintained by the HOA. I knew this wasn't true. I had the property survey documents signed, sealed, and recorded by the county. I knew my boundaries perfectly. Still, they doubled down. Carol and two board members confronted me one afternoon as I was trimming branches near my fence. She started shouting that I was damaging HOA property and demanded I stop immediately. I refused, calmly explaining that the property was mine and showing her the survey document. She ignored it and threatened to call the police. And she did. Within 20 minutes, two officers showed up. They were polite but clearly confused when I showed them proof of ownership. They reviewed the papers, apologized, and left after realizing it was a false report. You'd think that would be the end of it. But no. Carol saw that as a challenge. Over the next few weeks, she started a smear campaign. She sent letters to other residents claiming I was a problem homeowner who refused to follow the community rules. I found out she had even tried to fine me $500 for noncompliance. When I refused to pay for something I didn't do, she threatened to take me to small claims court. That's when I decided enough was enough. I had kept quiet, polite, and professional. But now it was time to remind her who she was dealing with. You see, I'm not just any homeowner. I'm a judge. I oversee cases in the very county where this HOA operates. I've presided over property disputes, contract violations, and cases just like this. I never flaunt my position, and I've always believed in staying humble. But when someone abuses authority and weaponizes the law against innocent people, I have a duty to act. Not just as a homeowner, but as a protector of justice. The following week, I filed a formal complaint with the state's Homeowners Association Regulatory Board. I included copies of every false notice, every threatening letter, and a detailed report of the harassment I'd faced. I also submitted the police report showing the false trespassing claim. While waiting for the investigation, Carol decided to escalate things again. One afternoon, I was returning from work and saw a tow truck parked near my driveway. Carol stood next to it, waving a clipboard, claiming my car was illegally parked because was facing the wrong direction. She actually tried to have my car towed from my own driveway. I recorded the entire thing on my phone. When the tow truck driver realized what was happening, he refused to touch the car. He told her straight out that she had no authority to do that. She was fuming, screaming that I would regret messing with the HOA. I simply smiled and told her, "You'll be hearing from me soon." 2 months later, the hearing date arrived. But here's the twist: she didn't know I was the one presiding over the case. When she walked into the courtroom, her confident smirk vanished instantly. She froze as soon as she saw me sitting at the bench. Her face went pale. You could almost hear a pin drop. I kept my tone completely professional as I opened the hearing. "Good morning," I said. "This case involves allegations of misconduct and abuse of authority by the HOA against a homeowner." She couldn't even make eye contact. The evidence was overwhelming: harassment, false claims, and misuse of HOA funds for personal vendettas. The investigation revealed that Carol had authorized illegal fines, falsified community notices, and even used HOA money for her own landscaping project. The board members who supported her quickly distanced themselves, pretending they had no idea what she'd been doing. But the paper trail didn't lie. After reviewing everything, I issued my ruling. The HOA was fined heavily for misconduct. Carol was permanently removed from her position, and new elections were ordered under state supervision. I also referred her for potential civil liability for defamation and abuse of authority. After court, she approached me in the hallway, trembling and apologizing. She said she didn't know I was a judge and begged for leniency. I told her something simple. It doesn't matter who I am. You should treat everyone with respect, whether they're a judge or a janitor. The community changed after that. The new HOA leadership was transparent, fair, and kind. The neighbors who had once stayed silent started to speak up about their own experiences. People began fixing their homes without fear of fines, and the atmosphere finally became friendly again. One evening, I sat on my porch, watching the sunset, feeling peace for the first time since moving in. The sound of laughter and kids playing echoed through the street. It reminded me why I had chosen this neighborhood in the first place. Not for control, not for power, but for community.